Great, thank you so much. Welcome everyone to our Halloween meeting of the Outdoor Adventure Commission. No one in here is in costume, so we're not very festive.
Yeah,
You're doing a costume. Good job.
I was, but then I came around the corner and saw none of you guys.
Right.
I had to go back to the office.
Oh, you can show.
No, this is my costume.
There you go. Oh,
He's Jason, and he's got Jason's socks.
that's pretty neat.
I might have to go to my car. I've got
Yeah.
a pretty good costume.
That's all right. I didn't dress up. I'm not very festive, so. So welcome everyone. Let's see. I don't know. I don't have an agenda in front of me.
They're right there.
Are they? Can I not grab one? Grab those to double check.
Here you go.
Cakes here. Oh, thank you so much. That's true. All right. So.
I was making sure I wasn't
So our first item is approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion for approval from our last meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Brandy makes the motion to approve minutes from our last meeting. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes and the minutes are approved. Okay, we'll go next to Ty Hunter to give us an update on a notification on voting rule changes.
Yes,
And you can come sit up here, I think, then the camera will get you.
we can do that. All right. Thanks, Mr. Chair. All right, so as per state statute 73, sorry, it's not 73, that's voting. 79-7201 is a notification of any rule changes. So the Division of Outdoor Recreation is recodifying rules. Since its development, we have not been able to pull over some of our rules from the parks administrative rules, which are labeled as R651, and then it'll be the 200 series. There's also a 627 and an 801 and an 802. We're going to be recodifying those and submitting them into administrative rules under R650. It'll be the 200 series from 201 to 228, and we won't be skipping the 600 into an 800 series. We combined all that. Also with that, we've taken some of the language and brought it into compliance with administrative rules. And then also we noticed that there was some language that was not necessarily in harmony with the Code of Federal Regulations, as we had definitions of that. So we had changed that to where it is in harmony with the Code of Federal Regulations that, in essence, dictates what we are to do with the voting program and how we are to have our laws and such set up within the state of Utah. So, and that's it.
So I'll ask a question and open up to anybody from the commission that wants to ask any questions about that. But it sounds to me that it's just cleanup language. Are there any substantive changes to the
No
rules?
substantive.
Okay, just clean.
The only substantive edits were to bring the rules in line with the Code of Federal Regulations, but those are a handful of definitional changes.
All right, a few definitional changes. Okay. Any questions from any commission members about that? All right, it's not here for approval, so there's no action to be taken. It's just an information.
That's correct.
point.
Yep, just
So,
notification.
okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and then we'll have a similar notification from Chase. Is Chase here?
He's online.
Oh, you're online.
Yeah, I'm here. Before I start, can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Mhm.
So I am festive. Just so I'm chicken nuggets, but I'll turn my camera off so I don't distract you from everything this. So mine would be the same as what Ty suggested on, or not suggested, just what he stated on the recodifying for the OHV rules. Ours will be R650, and then we will be the 400 series for ours. Ours isn't as much as what Ty has for administrative rules, and they are only technical changes, no substantial on those. And the list on mine would be the OHV decals display on 401, on 405, the husbandry decal fee, 410 is the safety flags, which we already renewed last year. We're just changing them to the 400 series on the designation on the sand dunes for the 3 sand dunes that we've designated in Utah. And then on 412, we have the safety curriculum standards. And then 413, which we just already advised the commission on, was the display of the OHV license plate. And so all of these were just brought up to the statute standards and all technical and no substantial changes there.
All right. Any questions from commission members on this item? None? So thank you very much, Chase, for that update and notification. Okay, now we will move on to the Outdoor Recreation Initiative update from Patrick.
Got it. I'd like to share some slides. So I'm going to share some slides. This is just a report that I submitted to the Interim Natural Resources Committee. Just kind of walk you through where we're at. I think just a few things to keep in mind. This year, very accelerated. So you'll kind of see some information about like where we hope to take the program. A special thank you to like Representative Stanquist and Jason Natera, to our strategic plan authors. I got a lot of help, as I've been crafting this, and thank you for extending it out to, gotten some insight from, or some interest from like cities, towns, counties. So thank you both for sharing that. But yeah, I'm just going to kind of walk you through how I see this right now. I'd love if you have questions. I mean, I just ask them immediately. But is this going to control the time for shit here?
I don't think so. I got it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So, pretty basic language. This is just kind of the bill language. And, right now, I think we all know that this program, it's kind of set up by the House Bill 224 passed in the last session. It's coming from the Outdoor Adventure Infrastructure Restricted Account, and then also there's contributions including and assistance. And that's something that I really would like to see kind of in future, installments of this program. A lot of this is going to be modeled after the Watershed Restoration Initiative, just with the more recreational ones, but they do a really good job of leveraging a lot of funding outside of state and feds, but just from like nonprofit partners and business partners. And so, that's definitely going to be something we're going to look at. I think at least our experience, when we talk to outdoor industry, it's always like, here's some gear, but I think we probably want something a little bit more substantial than that. Sorry, Craig. So these are the program goals. And, a lot of this is kind of coming from the language in the actual bill, but, a lot of this is about how do we leverage the state of Utah efficiencies to expedite outdoor recreation infrastructure development for all user groups, and in line with program priorities. I think one thing that the Watershed Restoration Initiative does that's just truly phenomenal is the creation of these regional recreation councils. They don't call them those, but that's what I plan to call them. Where they really can plan much beyond just projects for this initiative, but really look at, how they're planning recreation across their entire region, how they're looking at different grants, how they're looking at, their planning. And I think that's going to be one of the coolest aspects of this that I hope is going to continue much, much longer than, I'm even here to shepherd the program. Another goal is to identify and address gaps in state support for local communities' recreational development and maintenance. One thing that I've really looked at is we're really fortunate to have so much support and funding coming from the legislature. Here at the division, we get to be a lot of people's very favorite people because we get to help them and support so much infrastructure. However, we have huge gaps in what we can support. Like planning is going to be a big gap. Like really big ticket items is a gap. NEPA is a gap. There's just a lot of this, and so I really want to see this program try to address some of these gaps as we're moving forward with it. And then we're going to hear about this amazing strategic plan of these recommendations about how are we, going to target our funding and what we're going to do with it. So this program I see as a great complement to that. It is a great space for us to get these projects and to kind of look at them under that lens. So really, working just hand in glove with that. So this is just a quick timeline of kind of what the first year of the program is, just to kind of let you know what I've been up to. Pretty much starting like July 1, I've done so many meetings with so many just really generous, wonderful people, and federal, state partners, local partners, just to identify projects. I mean, so much of this was just talking to people, understanding like what projects do you actually have that are like shovel ready that can fit into this. So we did solicit a lot of projects. When I wrote this, it was over 50. We're probably beyond that quite a bit now. And we are seeing a good diverse array of projects as well, which is something I'll definitely want to talk to everybody about at some point. And then, I'm starting to, consult with like local regions about, what kind of projects they want to see. If I have a project from the Forest Service and it happens to be in King County, I'm reaching out to the individuals in King County and just making sure, is this something you want as well? Because, we do have that obligation to support our local communities with this. And then update the Outdoor Adventure Commission, which is happening at this very moment, if you can believe it. And then so November, refining the project lists, like the BLM, for example, gave me probably around like 30 different projects. And obviously we're not going to fund 30 projects for the BLM. And so it is about refining that, talking to a lot of these people who put in interest forms to understand like which are the ones that you really want to push forward with. Right now I'm starting to collect more detailed information for those. And then we're going to have you all hear the presentations and kind of review those in the November, December, January meetings. And so, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But once you do approve, I guess this is actually probably be a little switched. When you do approve, then that's when we go to the legislature during general session and just ask for that funding from that restricted account. Then April through July, depending on what's available funding wise, that's when we start sending out our contracts and then we push forward on the projects. And then just a little closer look at these regional recreation councils. So I'm sure everybody here is pretty familiar with Watershed Restoration Initiative, at least somewhat. I think they have 5 regions. Jason shared with me the Forestry Fire State Land regions. We have the Association of Government regions. There's a lot of regions out there, and I kind of took what I thought was going to be the most appropriate for recreation. When we look at certain breakdowns, you're just like, okay, these counties really should be together. Like for example, like Summit County and Wasatch County, I feel like they share enough, or like the Wasatch Front. Some of these areas that really do have similar experiences, and it will have a lot of crossover in some of their assets. And like Watershed Restoration Initiative was really broken down by watersheds. So like Garfield County is split, and you're just like, I don't want to split Garfield County up, for example. So that's what we're going to have. The plan is initially, and all of this is going to be proposed with these, but to do quarterly meetings. I think it's going to really fall on our staff quite a bit to help facilitate these and to really push forward. But the idea is that they can kind of work together, identify projects, kind of like what you're seeing in Zion right now. I mean, Zion, there's so many projects coming in from Zion, so you really can see just the credence of what happens when you do have these big collaborative groups. But so many projects touching so many areas, and it's kind of like exactly what we're looking for. And my plan is to hopefully steal some of those members. I don't want to insist that like, okay, you have to do this now because they have different purposes. But I do want to pull some of those members away. Same with like Canyon Country Partnership. We do have some really good regional groups right now, but none of them are going to be so specifically like purpose built for this. And then membership, ideally I want as a diverse group of people as possible without getting too big. But I do want to see user groups on here, nonprofits and businesses, tribal, city, county, state, federal user groups. So really hope to have a nice big wide cast net for that. And Carly's doing great. She's having to take notes and control my slides. So thank you. And this is just a snapshot of the councils. Once again, very deliberately put proposed. I would love any feedback on this. If you look at it and you're just like, why aren't, Kane and Garfield, why aren't they together? That's something I want to understand. But the goal is to have 5 initially. If we could get even smaller, great. However, I'm just considering the staffing, what it's like to facilitate these big things, because in Zion, for example, they have contracted out a facilitator. They do an amazing job, but it is really like a full-time job for them to get that together. But so these are kind of our regions right now. But once again, please, I will share all these slides with everybody. I would love feedback. Some of you have already given me some feedback, so I appreciate that. But give me as much as you have. I really do want this to be a collaborative thing because this is ultimately going to be landing right here in the commission desk.
What about in the cases of like proposals that are going to cross these regional boundaries, like you say, like King Garfield or Salt Lake to Summit or something like that, right? Like how do we identify those? How do we help move those along? Because with
those, that's kind of one where if there is a champion for it, say it's a trail like King County really wants, like let them kind of push forward with it. And obviously we want to make sure that it's got support from both areas. But on those cross county line, I'm not so worried about those because it's ultimately going to be, discussed in each of the councils. They'll kind of rank it, they'll bring them up to us, and then it'll be, I guess, you who will be doing the final approval on all of this stuff. So it's a great thought, but I'm not so worried about those. Any other thoughts on the councils while the slide is up and you can see it? Cool. And so as part of the legislation, as part of the report, I needed to create a project prioritization model. And so once again, this is kind of thinking about in the lens of like, what do we offer here in the division right now? And then where are those gaps? And, and also like with the language in the actual bill. So significant scope, we offer a lot of funding. So these projects should be larger than we can currently support in ours. So if we have like $150,000, like 3-mile trail, that's something we're going to want to target through UORG as opposed to this project. Benefit the local Utah communities. I think that was pretty clear. We want to support Utah communities. Addresses overcrowding. I think we saw, we're in the middle of doing our SCORP survey, and I think we saw it a lot in the workshops here, but overcrowding is just a huge issue. So if we can in some way address overcrowding with this, that's going to be great, whether it's dispersal, whether it's additions, addressing the underserved, and this isn't just like individuals, but activity types as well. We want to just make sure that there is a diverse range of opportunities for everybody. I'll just keep poking. Thank you for being my slide person. Cross-jurisdictional. I think it's going to be one of the strengths, right? So this project, a lot of it is going to be, it's kind of based on these like shared stewardship agreements with like the federal government, with the BLM and the Forest Service. That's something we're starting to work on. That's going to take a little time, and we hope to have those in place next year. Right now, like the BLM has no mechanism to give funding to the state, and same with the Forest Service. And so we're working on those. I think that's going to be a really significant accomplishment that hopefully can have like good impacts across the country if other states can model those similar agreements that we're starting to work on. For example, like the Watershed Restoration Initiative has like the Good Neighbor Agreement, and that's how they're able to kind of pass cash back and forth. However, in that specific agreement, it very specifically says like no buildings, and so there's a lot of things in that agreement that will make it not appropriate for this. So we're going to be working on that. And then backlog maintenance. Of course, there's just a huge backlog of maintenance. So we do want to see restoration projects of significant sizes. Our current grants, we can fund up to $150,000. So we do want to see really significant ones. Aligns with the Outdoor Adventure Commission strategic plan. I may need to update, like we did a few language tweaks on this, right? If I remember from some of the notes that came back. So I might need to actually update just a few words on that to bring it in line with where we're actually at now. And then shovel ready. We don't want projects that we're like, well, we're ready, to start in 2 years. That's something we'll suggest that, they come back to us. So, and, a lot of this is hopefully going to be just the nature of the projects as they've kind of been vetted by these regional councils and brought in front of us. So. Project approval flow. I tried to like organize that in a way that makes sense. So if it doesn't make sense, please let me know. But so each year, we'll have our solicitation phase. General public can submit through our project interest form. A lot of you shared that with some great partners. Thank you for that. Our staff in particular, me, will solicit projects from partners. That's kind of like what I've been doing with a lot of our federal partners. And then our regional councils, they'll kind of bring up their own. So we'll have kind of a big pot of projects. Then we get to the ranking phase. And so that's when I'll kind of work to kind of organize, make sure everything kind of fits on that baseline of our project priorities. I'll have more briefs for you. You'll have a little bit more advanced notice in subsequent years where you can kind of review these, kind of give suggested rankings. Same time, we'll have our regional councils discussing kind of ranking their own projects if they're coming up. And then we have approval phase, which we bring in front of you. You go to approve what projects we have. And then our funding phase, the legislature approves appropriation for approved projects. And then we start working on the contracts and project deliveries. So pretty straightforward. I think in subsequent years, it might get a little bit more complicated in a good way, though. The state, I think part of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Representative Stanford, but the state has a lot of efficiencies. It's fun to say efficiency and state government kind of in the same sentence, but when we're dealing with the feds, they're just like, oh, it would be so nice if you could help us with so much of this like procurement and contracting, and we have like our trail crew, we have a lot of in-kind opportunities, and so there are going to be opportunities where we can step in as project manager, as kind of like to deliver their need, but to do a lot of these things that they just can't do it. So yeah, I expect this to be like quite robust. So I probably will be asking for staffing assistance at some point. And then future development. So, I've had so many discussions with so many people. I think the first thing to say is like, people are so excited about this. I think one of my very first discussions was some Forest Service employees from the DC office, like high ranking up. And I told them about this. I was like, is there anything like this in the country? They're just like, no, but we can't wait because we will model this, like they're really, really excited. And it just goes across the board. So so excited about this, but as we look forward, I mean, I've kind of talked about about a lot of these, but those shared stewardship agreements with our federal partners are going to be huge, because I think a lot of this is going to be, we want to be equal partners in project management, which means, cash is going to need to kind of go both ways. We're going to need to have those agreements in place so we can like really work as a kind of the same team. Project specific planning, land acquisition, NEPA support, this is kind of what I talked about. Like, what are we not offering currently in the division? What can we offer? This round, not to like step on like the last slide, but we do have some planning requests coming in. We have some land acquisition requests coming in. We have some unique requests that are currently not being supported by the division in our current funding programs. And, that's something that like I personally would love to see, but I'm not a commission member, so I would love to hear you all discuss and kind of come to agreement on like where we're at with this. But I will say, NEPA planning, land acquisition, these are very, very big considerations for a lot of our partners across the state, and they currently just don't have a lot of support for it. I've already talked about kind of the regional recreation councils. We do want to facilitate those. And if we don't do it ourselves, maybe contract somebody, but we want them to be legitimate, not just kind of people meeting on their own, but we want to make sure that we're helping to push that. And that's something that's going to have a lot of benefits beyond just this program. And then, the final one is just kind of increasing how the division can support this. I think a lot of it's just going to be project specific. If they do need help from our trail crew, we can send them out. If they need help on project management or somebody just to deal with the contractors, if they're having issues with procurement, these are all opportunities for us to come in that I think is going to be really refined as we start getting more kind of reps with the project specifically. And then upcoming schedule, so November meeting, we found out those dates. So I'm going to start scheduling actual presentations for these projects that have come in. Before that, I will kind of brief you all with kind of just like, scopes of work, like, pretty basic information so you don't come in entirely unaware of what's going on, but give you an opportunity to ask questions. I'll give you contact information for the project sponsors just so you can reach out if you need. But we are thinking, obviously we have more construction projects to spend November and December to kind of review some of these presentations. And I have like, I think the last slide is maybe what I anticipate that the presentations to look like. But we'll do that November, December, and then January I thought is like kind of when we could pivot to some of the non-traditional or the non-construction projects, like our planning, land acquisition, some of the feasibility, some of these other things that are coming through the pipelines that communities really want. And then general session, we request funds for projects that have been approved by you all. And so I think I have maybe one more slide. Okay, and so this is, I've been sending this out to the people who are submitting projects. But this was just kind of how I'm imagining the presentations. Once again, I would love any notes, but I'm imagining a 10-minute presentation with 5-minute Q&A. If we need to go longer, of course we can, time given, but project overview, I want them to, just give like a pretty whole project, basic like description, what planning's been done, estimated timeline, like some of those that we see. I do want them to have like a higher level budget overview. Right now I've asked for, small budgets, like estimated costs. I do want them to have some clarity when it comes to the budget. I hope that they'll come up with, legitimate quotes, not just like, oh, this is what we anticipate. And then like anticipated share of cost by the state, anticipated share of cost by applicant partners, and then what kind of modifications are possible. If maybe somebody's coming in asking for 5 million, we don't feel comfortable giving them 5, make sure there are alternatives where they can kind of still succeed with a lesser amount if possible. I want them to address our prioritization checklist, and I think those are all going to be very important. And then one specific bullet with the Outdoor Adventure Commission strategic plan alignment, just to make sure that they understand what our plan is, and making sure I'm sending them all to that plan. I think hopefully today, after it's approved and we're good to go, I'll start sending them the actual, like the full plan. But I think that's it. I don't think I have any other slides, so I'm happy to answer any questions we have. I guess one question I have for you all, though, is for the presentation schedule, the November, December, January meetings. Does everyone feel comfortable with those?
I have a question on the November one. So is that the November 14th?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's interim, right, on the 14th? And I know it's UX
I
conference.
think it's the 15th is
It's gonna be the 15th.
interim. So I think we're still okay for 14th for this meeting. I know that it still maybe conflicts with the
Yeah,
UAC
it's the
conference.
UAC conference, like myself and let's see, David Apor and Commissioner Taylor.
I have a conflict for Parker as well. That Davis County has their active transportation planning meeting that same 14th afternoon.
And those present, I mean, that's mostly gonna be presentations.
Correct, yeah.
And so maybe there's an opportunity, if not everyone's able to attend, that we could record those meetings and somebody else could, then you could go back later and watch the presentation later.
Yeah, I would
There,
suggest something
everything's
similar to that.
recorded from all these anyway.
Yeah, so we'll record these and, and maybe we reserve the January meeting, kind of at the end to actually hold a formal vote, to give people the opportunities to catch up if not. And, and if there's anything we can do on our end, I mean, we could record the meetings timestamp, we could absolutely try to expedite your process, but. Any other questions, please?
Not so much a question, but an observation from our TIP active funding with UDOT. We've seen very optimistic budgetary numbers, I would say,
Sure.
that are overrunning. And so that's resulting in scope reductions. And so has there been any thought given to carrying a certain contingency as part of the contract?
I mean, I think our best practice is like with our other grants, we suggest at least a 10% contingency, and like these past couple of years have been a little bit more extreme, with so much inflation, but I mean, that's a good thought. So, and that's something I can, as I put in, and I'm having them prepare for like a more realistic budget talk, just to make sure that there is that contingency, like a solid contingency. And I'll also be relying on a lot of you to just maybe help take a look at some of these budgets. And if you see anything that's like, wait, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
That gets me thinking too, like, what's the timeline as well with like the TIP active? Like, are people gonna be applying for both in this, are there projects that are gonna?
Well, an our TIP active has the windows closed.
Okay.
I'm not sure when they're going to announce. I think it's February. But I'm not.
Because there's probably a handful of projects that could go either way, right? And we want to make sure that.
Yeah, I mean, right now I
If
can
we're
think
not, if we're not accepting it, like, do they go?
I can think of two right now. Like one in the Virgin River corridor, like the guacamole, or like somewhere like you're funding like a long active transportation path. But I think they want to put in for the supporting infrastructure because that's not covered by the TIP active. And then the other one, I don't know if it's anything they've done through UDOT, but it was, another like big paved recreation trail, kind of coming down into King County, I think from Mount Carmel. But I know that one has a few like land issues, it's worth crossing over some, and maybe some CILA and some private. And so they're still navigating that. I don't know if they're going to put it in this year though, but.
You can certainly get our TIP active first.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great. And, as I said at the very beginning too, this is a very accelerated timeline just to kind of get this moving this year. As we look at subsequent years, I mean, I would want all the thoughts to make this like truly a unique and powerful program to support recreation and then, a leading way. So.
And unique, I think, is the key word. Like you said in the beginning, filling those gaps that are currently not met by our programs or even TIP-A stuff. There might be a few, but I'd say that handful is going to be very, very small that would have that overlap. But I just wanted to just underscore the amount of work that Patrick's put into this. It started out as a few lines of code in HB 2224, and he's taken it and built this whole thing, which it's taken a lot of work, taken a lot of collaboration from our partners and from on Patrick's side, just a lot of trial and error, a lot of just very thoughtful and deliberate design for how this is going to work. And given the compressed timeline that it was under, I think it's turned out to be really good. I got high hopes for this.
Thank you. And like, I mean, obviously I did not do this alone. I've had a lot of support. So really appreciate, all the individuals here who have helped and who are not in the chairman. Yes, Vicky.
I would agree. It's very impressive. Can you remind us the maximum that people can, is there a max that they can apply for? And what's the total amount that we have to allocate?
Yeah, so I don't have a maximum on there. If we find.
There's a minimum, right?
Yeah, I mean, and even the minimum I think is like somewhat negotiable, depending on the project, like if it's, if it's a unique project that can't be covered by our other programs, you know, I think that's an opportunity, at least for you all to hear it, you know, and I can't stress enough, I'm not the decision maker here. I'm just trying to set it up the best. But yeah, minimum, like for a classic construction project, you know, we want it, if it could be funded by other ones. Maximum, I know, you know, I think there will be a few asks that could be quite substantial, you know, like $10 million or more. But those are the ones that I'm asking to like have some alternatives, you know, because right now, you know, we have 19 million available plus another 19 million. And then is the second 19 million, does that come available like July 1st? I know
Yeah, I think with the new fiscal year.
with the new fiscal year, yeah. And so, I mean, there is a lot of funding. That doesn't mean like, oh, we got to get it all out by any means, but yeah, there is a lot of funding because of that. Yeah, no minimum, no max, or I guess somewhat of a minimum, but no max. You know, I think Watershed Restoration Initiative, I've heard overwhelmingly positive things about it, but the only criticism I've heard, you know, a few times is just like it's not treating entire watersheds at once. It's really kind of piecemeal within this, and so I think there's an opportunity with such a substantial amount of funding to really target entire kind of recreation ecosystems in some of these areas. And if that's the case, you know, maybe those are going to be very, very large projects, but you know, I'll leave it all up to you for that. Any other thoughts or questions?
I guess the only, and by the way, fantastic job, Patrick. Speaking of those ecosystems, I'm wondering, maybe not this year, but next year, kind of having a way to see, you know, how some projects do overlay.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something the region groups can help us with.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. And I think, you know, like the asset inventory, you know, I think we are getting a lot of really good data that it's going to be really valuable as we're looking at some of this. Sorry, one more. No, please. I'm so excited to like finally put this in front of you all to get like some feedback.
So for our UDOT's prioritization process, we typically map them as well as show them on a list, just so you can see if one area might be getting significantly more opportunity than another. Is there value to following a similar format for this process?
Yeah, I think we could absolutely map. I mean, and with our other grants, you know, we're always cognizant of like spreading the funding, you know, and I don't see why this would be any different.
Yeah, we do it in Tableau and it's like a heat map and you can kind of see by.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there's a way.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and then it's always going to be a priority, especially, you know, we have so many people here on the Wasatch, but we just keep going into these smaller communities and, you know, making a mess of things. So we do try to spread out the funding. Any other thoughts? Great. Well, thank you all for giving me the time. I'm really excited about this. If you have any questions about anything, you know, like I have a project interest form. If you have people who still want to submit something, reach out to me. I'll share these slides with you. I can share our prioritization list. Everything I have for this, I'll happily kind of share out to the full group. But I would love any feedback if you want to have like a one-on-one. Please share it. And thank you to those who have given feedback and helped already share things. So, and thank you, Carly, for putting notes in my slides. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much, Patrick. And again, thank you so much for all the work you've done on this. This is, I mean, it's great to see you just taking the ball and running with it on this. And that's great. Yeah. Okay. So next we will have our presentation on the outdoor strategic plan.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for making it to the end of the strategic planning process. You finally made it. And on behalf of the entire team from Utah State University, we're really happy to help get you there. I think you've laid out in a very ambitious and strategic vision for how to improve outdoor recreation across the state. And how exciting is it to actually hear one of the recommendations that came out of the commission discussion probably about a year ago at this time, for some regional coordinated councils and some of the feedback that came out of our workshops that already has gotten passed through, got some legislation, some funding, and then is now actually getting some structure behind it. So it's actually great to see that the plan already start to bear some fruit, even though we're just now getting the plan finished. So hopefully everyone that's online can hear me. I'm gonna take just a short amount of time today to give you some background on what we've put into the plan,
so you feel confident moving forward, advocating for it as a representative of your organization. And then share a short video that we pulled together for you and your constituents and the general public to showcase what this plan actually includes and some of the work that went into it. So just to remind everyone, especially for some of our commission members who are a little bit newer, this is not your maybe typical strategic planning process that has been specifically focused on an individual agency or an individual organization. The strategic planning process was really meant to address the needs and interests of all outdoor recreationists and small outdoor recreation management agencies across the state. So it's not a plan of the Division of Outdoor Recreation or the Office of Tourism or any one individual agency. We really were trying to collect as many different inputs to understand what those different needs are from a lot of the stakeholders who are not represented on the commission, but who do have a very big role in supporting and providing outdoor recreation. It's a strategic plan that has been guided not only by the input of you as commissioners, but has been guided by the input of a lot of stakeholders. We held 14 interactive workshops last fall and this spring, many of which you were able to participate in, which we had several hundred outdoor recreation managers, planners, and other elected officials come and present their own opinions about the critical challenges and opportunities for outdoor recreation within the future. There's also been a lot of other data that has gone into this planning process. The development of an outdoor recreation asset database, so I'm actually quantifying where different pieces of outdoor recreation infrastructure are, regardless of who they're managed by. We've done a comprehensive inventory of funding, how the states and counties are funding and supporting outdoor recreation, either through taxes and fees, and how those monies can actually be used. And that's reported in an individual report. We've done a statewide needs assessment survey, so we've actually tried to understand what the outdoor recreating public wants to see you make these investments in. So these are pieces of data that you can then refer back to when considering these projects that might be up for consideration in your next few meetings. We've also talked about future projections for outdoor recreation demand and where there's an opportunity to increase supply so that it meets demand, and maybe some opportunities where there is no current demand, but investments in infrastructure might actually bolster some of that demand. We've also done a comparative analysis of how Utah manages outdoor recreation and provides outdoor recreation relative to the other Western states, looking for some comparative advantages that we might have relative to the other Western states. So just wanted to reemphasize this slide is that this strategic plan isn't just the 36 pages that you have in front of you right now. It's also several hundred pages and lots of man hours and discussions that went into cultivating the specific objectives and the areas of opportunity that are related with this plan. So you have a lot of ammunition, a lot of strength and recommendations that are laid out in this plan.
So to follow up on that point about there's lots of underlying data to support the plan. I don't know if that could be available, like if it's available online, if there's resources and links that you could go from here's the plan and then here's all the supporting access to all that supporting data.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked out, the Division of Outdoor Recreation does have a website, an individual web page that has the outdoor recreation strategic plan. Right now, there's the video talking about the need for the legislation. It was a couple of years ago, and I think it had you and Representative Wilson talking about the development of the plan. Yeah. I think that's a great storage place for these reports as well as the plan itself, and maybe the video that we're about to show to introduce the objectives and some of the areas of opportunity that have been outlined by U.S. Commission members. Right. So lots of data, lots of input from different stakeholders. So you do have a very solid grounding to say that this strategic plan represents the visions of not only you as a commission, but the interests of a lot of other stakeholders that we've interacted with over the past 18 months. It was only 18 months ago that we actually started this process, May of 2022. So it has been a really rapid process to work through all this analysis, all this planning to deliver a strategic plan that can hopefully guide your discussions in the coming months. So I want to share now a short video that we have prepared to provide you as well as the general public with an overview of the strategic plan, specifically the cardinal directions and the need for the plan as well by some of the commission members.
This is the first time that I'm seeing this video,
Same.
so. I was wearing the same shirt one.
Oh,
We will not judge you anybody's wardrobe choices today. And we do still have a couple final minor tweaks to make to the video, but we're happy to share it with you today. Carly, then you can mute yours and I can.
Oh, yeah.
Myself.
The folks online, I don't think they could- they couldn't hear, so
Oh.
we'll have to send it out to them,
I will.
but I'm sure they appreciated the beautiful.
I will send it out. I do apologize for the little bit of lag in the video, but thank you to our video production specialist, Liz Soja, for pulling that together. Since you did finalize the plan just a few weeks ago, so we were on pretty tight timeline to get that turned around. Yeah, that was just a short, fun video to reintroduce to all of the workshop participants that came out last fall or last spring to the strategic plan, let them know that it's been finalized, that you as a commission have set a pretty ambitious goal forward for the state as a whole. And it provides an opportunity for people who might not have been involved in the planning process to understand that the plan exists and that it does have some very specific guidance for how we move forward. So I just wanted to kind of emphasize as we wrap up, the strategic plan has 4 cardinal directions, and they're really meant to be, I think, bearings on the horizon, things that you might want to just put in the back of your mind as you consider reviewing projects over the next few months. And it also has some very specific areas of opportunity. And those are areas that might not be specifically related to projects. And projects are really just one thing that the Outdoor Adventure Commission can actually do. This board, this commission has a lot of potential beyond just reviewing and supporting the outdoor adventure infrastructure restricted account moving forward. There's a lot of recommendations, a lot of areas of opportunity that are outlined in this plan that this commission can take up. And there's a lot of them that you, as individual agencies or the agencies that you represent, are already taking up and making some substantial progress on. And we've made notes on those or made allusions to those in the plan, writing about the areas where there's been agencies like the DOR and Utah Office of Tourism that have made significant progress on safe and responsible recreation messaging or developing destination development plans that really support the development of outdoor recreation industries at a local scale, particularly in our rural destinations. So I want to just finish by emphasizing that these are the areas of opportunity that you've laid out in the strategic plan, and they really cast this vision of what outdoor recreation in the future actually looks like. So Jake, if you want to jump in here, Jake's just going to ask you kind of walk through these specific areas of opportunity, and just to remind everybody that this really is the vision for outdoor recreation within Utah for the future. And I think as you think back through these areas of opportunity that you've now all reviewed, that you actually get pretty excited about being on this commission, about the prospects for what lies ahead. We've heard about all the amazing projects that you're going to review in the coming months, but there's a lot more to it that this plan really lays the foundation for.
Yeah, so first of all, 2 movie stars amongst us. We're lucky, and an amazing voice. 3 movie stars, yes, amongst us. You know, I thought it was interesting. One of the lines out of that short video was from Jason. He said, "After this is approved, it's time to get to work." And that's really what lies ahead from our team as we've watched the Outdoor Recreation Commission talk and rally around the efforts of the strategic plan is now it's time to get to work if the last 18 months weren't work enough. So just to kind of orient you, we hope this ends up on your refrigerator at work or on your desk or something, as Jordan mentioned, as one of those ways to keep your personal organization, the organization you work for or lead, in line with these strategic goals. So we're hoping this ends up somewhere where you see it a lot. And then as well, the detail is in this short book that's led or underpinned by a lot of those larger reports. So we did want to start the conversation as you're now thinking about getting to work. Part of the power of this commission, I think, is the many different facets of outdoor recreation that's represented and some of the nuanced lenses that outdoor recreation is seen through. So we wanted to start a conversation amongst you commission members of how your organization, as you look at these strategic goals and as these directions, objectives, and especially areas of opportunity, what are ways your organization is already working towards accomplishing some of these goals, engaging in some of these areas of opportunities, or maybe ways that the organization you work with or lead is hoping to influence some of these areas of opportunity.
again, just as a way to get started. And specifically in the first cardinal direction of building support and collaborative processes. Is there any examples amongst the group to maybe look for areas where overlap is already occurring in these areas of opportunity, or maybe gaps where they could occur?
Well, and if I may,
Please.
I also want to make sure that there's been a lot of work on this. There's been some refinement since the last draft that we looked at. And, really, and thanks so much, Jordan, your team, everyone that's participated in this and all the work that you put into this. And so now I want maybe the commission members to think about, this really is, the charge of this commission is to create this plan that is really the state of Utah's strategic vision for outdoor recreation. So hopefully through some of the refinements that we've got and that we've made, that it really reflects our feelings about that. So if there are any any input to this, I think we've received some good input to this, and I like kind of the this is really good, but I really want to hear from any commission members that have input as this is going to now become the final version of this plan, to make sure that everybody's on board with this before we approve it, final approval. But so yeah. So go ahead.
I was just say, I said some edits and had a chance to look at the revised sections where I had some comments and was kind of happy with the way those have been reworded and just sort of different emphasis on different parts that I thought helped the message better with a different emphasis. So I appreciate that for you to give feedback and noted that it was included.
Great.
I'm very happy with it. Our team hasn't, I asked my leadership team to review, and they have not been able to review the updated version. So I'll send along any final feedback that we have. But I feel like it's directionally really solid, and I don't see anything that I would take issue with. I think it creates a great platform to get to work.
Yeah, I would echo that. A platform for us to take off from. There, a lot of these I see as, there's already been some great progress. I mean, you already heard Patrick's introduction of where we are with the Recreation Investment Coordinative Initiative. Huge opportunity there, and also some good momentum going into it. Real opportunities in terms of the private industry support for outdoor recreation. I think that's one area that is really yet to be tapped into. Opportunity for more growth and more of that improved collaboration and coordination, not just through the ORI that Patrick talked about, but also our expansion as a division, as we kind of prudently look into where, the areas where we need to add staff, and that is the trails program. Right now, we don't really have a central point to make that coordination happen. So there's a huge opportunity there as well. And then bolstering support for outdoor recreation planning assistance. As Patrick alluded to in his presentation, we hear that constantly. We need help with planning, either just from a holistic strategic planning standpoint, locally or regionally, all the way to things like NEPA. There's not a lot of good ways for us to do that. And I think there's a huge opportunity, and this gives us good direction for that.
Yeah, and I would underscore that there are areas of the state where that is more needed because they have fewer resources. Predominantly our rural areas, smaller communities. So this has been a plan to just look through.
Sorry, go ahead, Tara.
Well, no, there are just so many things where I'm thinking this is really showing a lot of guideposts as we go forward as a division of what we can aim to hit or what we can aim to add, as we add capacity to the division and trying to take on. And of course, some of these are engagement and partnership kind of things. So excited about that.
No, it's okay. Jordan, I think you and your team deserve a tremendous amount of recognition and kudos for the work that you all put into this. This isn't necessarily a comment on the strategic plan, but something that I've been seeing a lot, and I think it came out in some of the workshops, and it definitely relates to certainly the Cardinal Direction 1, building and supporting collaborative processes, but there's a lot of duplication of efforts. And something that I would like to maybe propose to the commission to consider at a later date is talking about how we might be able to not only support those individual processes, but create some kind of a platform to inform folks of what current projects are happening. I can think of multiple examples down here in Southwest Utah where it seems like multiple folks are working toward the same direction, but they may not necessarily be aware of those others. And I think this kind of ties back to Patrick's point earlier with the ORI, where having that cross-jurisdictional collaboration and communication can be really valuable, so that folks are working together and not in parallel and potentially competing against each other. But I think overall the report and the plan was very well done, and I appreciate all the work that everyone put into it.
Okay. Any other comments? And I don't know that we addressed your specific question.
We were just trying to spark conversation amongst the commission, but yeah, your business that you wanted to cover is very relevant.
I think that first objective, I mean, ironically, just getting us all together, right? Tara, we figured out potentially a place for your trail crew to store stuff yesterday.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I mean, I think, again, this very format has just brought people together who probably, I know most of the people in this room, but I don't see them monthly without this meeting.
Yeah.
So I think it's good, just in and of itself, and that's only gonna grow. So I think that answers your question. Urge idea.
Well, that's really what we, go ahead.
Well, no, I just thought, I'll just headline for a future discussion that our office has established the Forever Mighty brand, and which is a challenge to be a responsible visitor. And so we're doing research right now to understand how that messaging plays with visitors. And I'd like to make a report at a future meeting so that it can create a foundation for what additional stewardship messaging we do as a commission.
How it resonates.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, I think along those lines, like, that's something this commission should be looking at, is how this plan is impacting these 4 cardinal directions in the future, and how we measure that. What are the metrics we're going to look at? Are we changing education levels and, impacts on that? Are we helping to disperse, recreation into areas? Like, is this plan having that impact, or what is impacting that? And that's, it's great. Like, super psyched on this plan. I think it's really great. Now, how do we measure the impact of it moving forward? And so we can pivot, adjust, recalibrate when needed to make sure it's effective. And I don't know how we measure those yet, other than, through maybe the regional councils, maybe the impacts of funding, all those things, but we need to be able to track that.
Or county complaints.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why we ask these questions prompted you to think about the ways that you're already contributing to some of these specific areas of opportunity is because what we've seen and what we learned from interacting with each of you is that there's some agencies and entities that are doing it really well on one specific objective, and there's other agencies that are doing it really well on another objective. So I think that again, that really just emphasizes the power of this commission is to just share those best practices or share what's working. So other people can learn from it. The county can learn from what the Office of Tourism is doing really well, and DOR can learn from what the counties are actually experiencing on the ground. There's a lot of opportunities for those exchanges of ideas, and what those metrics actually are, I think are kind of maybe up to you as a commission moving forward. But I think the objectives in these areas of opportunity are really right to say, when you go back to the state legislature in 2 or 3 years and say, this was our strategic plan that we developed in 2023, and we've already had some major wins. I mean, you've already seen this. We have not even fully finalized the plan yet, and you already have some major wins on these areas of opportunity that are outlined within it.
So to clarify, this is the final version, right?
We do have some few minor tweaks. So if you have some small editorial issues, feel free to send them along.
Well, and that's a
What's our
question.
timeline for that?
Well, so I have a question. So then I guess that's a question for the commission. If we feel like we want to digest this and maybe have a few more tweaks, we want to make it and bring it back for approval at our next meeting, we can do that. If we're ready to approve it now, I suppose we could approve it now, but it sounds like we might want to give it, maybe bring it back on our next meeting for final approval. Is that?
Yeah, I think it's about there, but yeah.
Does that sound good?
I think that sounds great.
Probably should get
Yeah,
one
but
more
this is,
read over.
yeah, I think so.
And,
Who takes this next now and walks through every legislator up on the Hill through this beautiful document?
Well,
Make sure they read it all. and understand it all.
right. I think that's a good question. And, I
It's gonna
think,
need some more pictures.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot more pictures and a lot less words.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think honestly, too, in answer to that question, Pitt, I think obviously our chair has a huge capacity to do that, but each one of us in our contacts should have, when this is finally done, have a few extra copies up on the Hill and preach the gospel as we have the opportunity to do so.
So, yeah, so that leads to my next question. Like, what's the legal ramifications of us lobbying for projects or plans being on the commission? Like are now, because we were a part of this, is there any repercussions if like I pushed a project that I feel passionate about or
Well,
whatever?
and I would be surprised if we don't all have like our little, like, here's our, I'd love to do this.
Oh yeah,
program.
we all have our wish list for sure.
But I would say pass those on to Patrick and go through the process, and then we can all discuss those and you can, I guess, advocate for your favorite project amongst us as a commission, which ones we like, and we can have that debate and discussion too as we look through and reprioritize as well. My hope too is that this, all this work that we've done, we feel really good about it, that it doesn't now just sit on a shelf and collect dust. I mean, I honestly, I have quite a few of these kind of documents sitting on my desk. And but I hope that we refer back to it and we have it be kind of like a useful working document that really, and particularly as we evaluate projects, that we can say, okay, does this, and at least keep it in the back of our mind, is it supporting these goals, or is it just taking us kind of maybe in a different direction?
Well, I think that's the key part of it when we do, whatever, put a list, a suggested list together. But that's probably the easiest way to educate the legislature and decision makers on this, is to say, we're supportive of this because it checks this cardinal direction in the strategic plan. And then they say, what's the strategic plan? And you can be like, yeah, remember, review the cardinal directions, right? Like, I think we always have to be pointing back to this is what's driving the decision of that, like pointing back to supports this aspect of it.
Right.
Remember one of the, blah, 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 like all of that.
I think it's a really
That could
good
be the
idea.
continual education.
Yeah. And really have that be part of the key criteria that we're using when we evaluate the projects that we prioritize.
And I don't intend to have this be one of those on that pile of plans or on that shelf of plans that sits, to your earlier comment of how do we track success on it.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have this particular piece to keep it relevant, keep it in view, so that we do know, are we building and supporting? Are we improving? Are we increasing? Are we increasing? And be able to find ways to look back and number one, show that progress and tell the story of what we have done as we've marched towards each one of these directions. And, yeah, as far as advocating for individual projects, if it fits the plan and your legal counsel there at All Trails is okay with it, then go ahead.
The other part, Pitt, when you were talking about advocating for, I mean, if you look at the area of opportunities and there's something that doesn't currently exist that ought to, that's the spot to look at and say, does that exist and can it exist without funding? And if it can exist without funding, that's another aspect of it. But I do have a potential co-project for you that I want to talk to you about. That doesn't involve that. It does involve though data and trails.
Sure.
And so yeah, I'll chat with you about that after. But those kinds of things where there's these areas of opportunity, and the one that I'm talking about does fit in one of these spots.
Well, I think that comes back to also leveraging funding or resources from private sector, that was labeled as like one of the priorities here. Like, when is it right to point direction and say, no, go to the private industry for this versus, it's a state sponsored or a state initiative or something like that.
On the collaboration front, I would just extend an invitation in addition to our two conferences, which Tara participated at our spring conference. We didn't allow near enough time. We went way over and there were still a lot of questions being asked. But the county commissioners hold a call every month. And if there are any stakeholders that would like to be on that agenda, I'd be happy to facilitate that.
Do you want to ever, if you want to ever have Patrick present on that, that might be a good thing. I think they should be aware of.
I think I'd actually like to participate in something.
And maybe even share this and we'll get copies of these. That would be, maybe at a future, when's your next UAC? Do you have the fall or winter one?
Yeah, well, that's the one that's in 2 weeks. So I'll send out a doodle poll or something to try to massage that date if we can.
Okay.
Along similar lines, League of Cities and Towns Conference, will be in the end of April. And in order to make sure it's not something that just sits, I would like to make sure when we have final, I can get enough copies for the league board and staff to make sure they have copies. But I think it's better as an interactive document, so either through a video or presentation. So I know that you've come and talked at previous league events, Jeff, on this, but whether you come down to St. George or Jason does, and then of course we have our unofficial mountain bike ride, where I think if you can give this plan while pedaling, that might be better. So I think that would be a great way to make sure that it gets out there. From a everybody has a favorite project standpoint, and because I wear so many multiple hats, including advocacy for different projects, I would say that all that would be important is just transparency. So that, I expect that if there's a project in Draper, Jeff will have a favorite. If it's Conical, I'll have a favorite. If it involves apps with trails on it, you might have a favorite. But I just think that would be important just to this group, is that if we have one where we're a supporter, that we just make sure that, we've declared that so that everyone's aware, in case I might not have, intuited your particular project.
And speaking about evangelizing the plan too, certainly the legislature's an important audience, but also our different agencies and the different groups that we all represent as well, evangelize it among the counties, the cities, and different communities that we interact with as well. And maybe we need to come up with, and opportunities that, like the recreation conference and the trails workshop, things like that, to say like, hey, there's this strategic plan and this is what it is, it consists of, and this is what the direction, to get more people across these different communities and user groups can understand that, hey, we have a vision and let's all get on board with it and work together.
And I think this gives a blueprint for user groups to advocate for their activities, right? Because they can come, the backcountry skiing community can look at this and say, all right, like, we want to contribute to this cardinal direction. The motorized community can do that as well, like whatever it is, but it gives them a blueprint, which is good. And then that's what you really need, is those user groups to contribute, because they're the ones that are gonna be carrying the flag to get a project done or whatnot, more so than a, you know, more so than a incredibly busy volunteer commissioner from a rural county that wants to do it, but has 1,000 things on their plate. Like, let these advocacy groups or these like user groups help carry that torch for them. So we need to get them on board as well, right? It's not just the legislature, but it's let them figure out how to leverage this plan to get projects done.
And that's what will keep it from becoming another over on the pilot plant.
Right.
Is that they know about it and they can advocate in their circles of influence and keep it relevant, keep it moving, and keep the progress going. A couple weeks ago, I went to the kind of the official unveiling, releasing handoff of the Air, Water, and Land Institute's report. It was a huge, big production. Now, I don't know if we need to do anything like that, but might be worthwhile to consider an event that we do. We invite all of those partners, all of your individual partners and stakeholders to some sort of an event where we basically show the video, have an opportunity to give everybody a copy of it and ask them to be engaged in how it unfolds.
Do you have an outdoor rec day scheduled at the?
Yeah, it's
On the
February
Hill.
15th.
February 15th.
That could be a really interesting launch day.
And the tour caucus, we can talk about it there too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or we could do something before if you wanted
Yeah.
to, and I could like get a spot like
Yeah, I was thinking
over
something
down at the
before.
Galavin or over at Red Butte or
Hard part is the third house calendar dates for lunches or dinners for the session are booked. You have to actually book them a year in advance. So 2024 is already booked unless someone cancels.
Okay, yeah.
You can get session breaks, but that's,
We've already got a month.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
got a
What
large
I'm
breakfast.
thinking is that,
Yeah, or
you
the,
know, you could do a series of announcements, that being one of them. I would just be,
Do a media event where we can invite those partners, invite the media. I mean, it would be, I would say something in the next 6 weeks that we would have, some sort of a venue, and then, again, invite the media, invite partners, like refreshments.
can do that.
Do kind of a launch, an official
Yeah.
launch to the public.
I like that. I've just been communicating a little bit with Natalie Randall, who's observing. And I want to go back to Kelly's point about, it is just so important that we start communicating more, because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and a lot of it, I think these regional groups will be really useful. And we have a rural outreach team at the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity that I'd like to get involved in those regional groups.
sorry, and on the 15th, is it a lunch that you have set up for the third house calendar?
Well, it's our day on the hill.
Oh, yeah.
There is a lunch, right?
Or breakfast.
I
It's
think
always a
it's from 9 in the morning till noon, I think. Maybe don't quote me
It's
on the
just a
start
day on
time.
the
It might
hill.
start earlier than that.
In the rotunda, you have like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reserve?
Mhm.
And Natalie's just offering up that we may have some windows with tourism day on the hill, which is tonight. So we're happy to
Okay.
coordinate with them.
Always love.
Yeah, we can send out a save the date or something like that, so we'll all are aware.
We could do, just saying, December 12th is the date of our Outdoor Adventure Commission meeting. We could have it at a different location and right before, because of the news cycle, have a press
Have a
conference.
meeting.
Yeah.
That'd be a good
That would
idea.
be our
Does
lunch
that give
event.
you time
Yeah.
to get enough copies?
So-
Like if it's approved at the next meeting, then.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be
So do you have time for printing? Yeah, I'll devil's advocate that just a little bit, because you can't get people's attention much at that time of year.
I actually like the
Well-
idea of doing multiple, like, I think you should talk about it as many times, and as many
Yeah.
places.
Yeah.
This one
Yeah,
would be,
I
I
think
think, mainly for the media to have the opportunity, if we can time it right. And no conflicts,
If it's
and
a
have it
slow
in
media day, maybe we'll get attention.
yeah.
Hopefully nothing's going on in the Middle East or anything like that.
Yeah, to Kate's point, there are many opportunities.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
And maybe we'll just put together a list of what all those opportunities are, including, a launch event, day on the hill, tour caucus meetings, tourism day on the hill. And I think once we have that all on paper, it'll be abundantly clear that there are a lot of opportunities to take advantage of and evangelize.
I'm speaking to the OHV user group on Thursday, so,
I heard about that. Yeah, they're pretty excited.
oh, okay, good to know.
One conversation Jordan and I were having on the drive down is
I said, don't take their seat away from them.
is this commission's extreme responsibility when it comes to advocating or to putting out funding, and that can be something, I think, as Tara's crew knows, like that it can become all consuming when you're ranking projects and all that. So we felt really grateful that this is finished ahead of that moment where you have to shift gears and for the next couple of months focus on that. But when that dies down, the opportunity to revisit this and talk about as a commission, the direction and the tremendous opportunity this commission has to not only fund projects, and I think projects are easy to get focused on because they're kind of the fun things to talk about, but the way to advocate for a larger direction, in general, that's independent of projects, that maybe has more of a policy aspect to it, but pushing the needle, that I think is where this strategic plan started from. How do we actually change the paradigm and push the needle of outdoor recreation? And hopefully the directions that are laid out here become what this commission continues to go back to make it a living document. And that's why it's not 400 pages long. It's supposed to be pretty quick, easy to digest, and something you can flip to in these meetings and address topics that are yet to be covered. So,
Well, and along those lines too, we have other grant programs that we can now take another look at criteria for scoring, all of our other grant programs through the lens of the strategic plan, and the data that goes along with it.
Well, thank you for the great discussion. I know everybody's got to get to trick or treating, but just once again, on behalf of the entire Utah State team, myself and Jake, who you've interacted with quite a bit, Casey, who's also had a heavy hand in helping do a lot of the analysis on the back end. Wayne Bryman, who's one of our faculty members down in Moab, Chris Mons, who's up in Logan, Liz Soja, who's our video production specialist, and Nate Troutline, who you heard from a few months ago. And all of our undergrads who helped pull together data for the asset database, as well as all the threats that we had identified in our workshop. So, yeah, just once again, it was a real pleasure to help the Outdoor Vision Commission through this process. I know we still have a few minor steps to take you over the goal line, but I think we've gotten you to a very good stage. And thank you for all the feedback along the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. And extend our, yes.
and Jordan brought chocolate down, so while you're reading this, you can just have something to.
Excellent. Yeah, and extend our appreciation to everybody in your team. We really do appreciate it. Yeah.
Just clarification, is this the same version that we received electronically?
Yeah, I sent this version across, I think, last Thursday,
Okay,
so that's the
all right,
next.
very good.
Right. Any other discussion or things that we need to go through before we adjourn? Now I'll call for a final motion. All right, motion adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation.
Thanks, everyone.